Alaska Bigfoot denial. I live in remote Alaska. This year we did a camp trip, gold panning trip. On the first day at Camp 1 took a walk on an old logging road. About a mile from Camp 1 got a feeling and found myself frightened and heading back to camp. I realized I had been mind-fucked. Never had this happen to me before. It made me very mad. The next afternoon I was exploring a bit with my fly rod. Nice big holes in the creek next to our camp, and OMG, there was bedrock everywhere. Then in some pea gravel and moss on the bank of the creek, I found an 18 to 20 in track impression. The brain instantly started to deny it was a Bigfoot track, just no way. The next day I decided to take my .22 and see if I could score a grouse. I put 4 shells in my rifle and popped off a couple at a can, just to make sure my sights were dead on for a headshot. I walked about 1.5 miles and decided to fill my feed tube. Everything got really quiet. My pit bull ran to me. I had put a couple of shells in, when I swear, I heard a frickin' train. The next thing I knew I was dizzy, a bit woozy, and trying to figure WTF had just happened. I realized my cheek hurt. I touched a hand to it and it was bleeding a little. I further surveyed the scene and saw a very big chunk of an alder branch laying in front of me. I got out of there very quickly. The next day I went back with the .30-06 and looked around. The branch had barely nicked me, just a glancing blow. The stick was about 2 inches around and weighed a good 20 pounds. It hit another alder after it got me, knocked off a chunk of bark. My brain is still fighting for denial. A couple of days later, the wife and I see some Yellowfoot Chanterel mushrooms and take off up the hillside to pick enough to add to our dinner. Up the about 200 yards, we were above a rock slide that made a clear view of our camp. There was a huge impression in the moss where something huge had been lying there. We also found tracks not far from there. About a month after our camp trip was over, we went mushroom picking about 5 miles from our campsite. We've been picking this area for years. Awesome. This year both the wife and I noticed the tracks. The tracks varied from blocky tracks about size 12 to some about 20 inches long. While I would still like to deny what we've seen, I think it has gone past that point. Pretty cold and wet here for plaster casting. I plan to get some epoxy resin to try making track casts. Post from user The Jerk at Bigfoot at Reddit.